Man, Ted got y'all some World War III news, man. As y'all heard, if you haven't heard, this nigga Trump just bombed freaking Iran, bro. What the fuck is this nigga doing? What is he doing? Look, Iran. If anyone from if the president of Iran ever see this, bro, I fuck with you. Look, I ain't vote for that nigga. I don't know what the fuck he doing. You feel me? So look, I fuck with you. So you gon' bomb place? Don't bomb Houston, bitch. You know what I mean? I don't know what that nigga doing. I don't support that nigga bombing y'all. He need to mind his business. I don't know why he's sitting there fighting these people wars. They got nothing to do with us for real. But I ain't finna do too much chatting before the video. I'm just finna let the video do what it do.
It's official. The United States is preparing for war with China in 2027 or 2028. This is exactly how World War III will ruin your life. War minus 30 days. It's a day like...
Guess they're talking about China. I thought the nigga was gonna talk about Iran. This video was made like 3 weeks ago. But I thought I was gonna talk about Iran. But they're talking about China, but we still gonna watch this video, man.
Any other, except it isn't. The new normal is constant updates from cable news talking about the ongoing military buildup in the Pacific. China's been mobilizing its military for the last 6 months, and there's been several ways the country has tipped its hand as to its intentions. First was the lockdown on VPN services for Chinese citizens. At first, the world thought that it was just another attempt by the Chinese Communist Party to restrict its people's access to the global internet. And it was. But for a far more sinister purpose than normal, which is already saying a lot, for a country that tries its best to censor the entire planet for its citizens. As Chinese officials start the silent preparations for war, there's a concern that foreign propaganda could be weaponized against Chinese society. China's Cyberspace Administration of China, operating under the Central Cyberspace Affairs Commission, has been cracking down on VPN use. There's good reason for concern, too, as the United States has begun waging an information war against China's civilians the moment it was clear the nation was preparing to invade Taiwan. Organizations like Radio Free Asia, funded by the U.S. government, broadcast on both the internet and radio, attempting to reach Chinese citizens with news of the pending catastrophe. The goal is to erode public support for hostilities.
Hold on, I'm gonna turn the fan off, chat. This is cold as shit in my room. Alright, chat.
Beijing is also concerned of information flowing back into China from its own military once the war starts. For years, President Xi Jinping has been promising a swift victory over Taiwan to his people. The reality is the untested Chinese military will be cutting its teeth on the largest, most complicated amphibious operation in human history, a fertile stage for disaster. Beijing does not want its own people knowing just how many casualties its military is suffering. The next sign that China was preparing for war was the conscription of civilian ferries. A national law mandates that all civilian ferries in China have the capability to carry military vehicles in an emergency, and that day has arrived. Hundreds of ferries have been conscripted into the Chinese Navy, awaiting the berthing of tens of thousands of Chinese troops and their combat vehicles. A third sign that the war is near happening now. For months, Chinese influence agents have flooded American social media, painting the United States as an imperial power only interested in enriching itself at the expense of others. It's a psyop being carried out to undermine American public support for the war, and it is very effective. But a month before the war starts, the campaign is ramped up dramatically. Chinese influence agents have infiltrated pacifist and other activist groups in America, even encouraging them to physically impede traffic near important American military installations. Online influence agents have convinced American activists to physically glue themselves to a U.S. Navy resupply vessel headed for Guam. It's a repeat of an incident in 2023 when protesters glued themselves to a Navy support vessel en route to deliver supplies to Israel. This latest stunt delays the shipment of fuel.
People were gluing themselves to boats. The shit people do these days to escape their country. You know what I mean? That's up there with those people hopping on that plane to escape. Was it Iraq or something? You know. Hey, y'all saw that video where they hopped on the plane? I'm talking about like on the bottom of the plane and tried to like hold on all the way from the Middle East to America, and them niggas fell off like a dickhead. I don't know what they thought was gonna happen. Like, bro, you was not finna stay on the plane from there to America. You was definitely gonna fall off. Like, niggas are so slow. Like, people don't understand how dumb people are. Like, Niggas are stupid, man.
And air defense missiles, messing with America's military logistics and timetable as it prepares for conflict. War minus 7 days. Cable news is running up-to-the-minute stories on the situation in the Pacific. The Chinese Navy has taken up positions east of Taiwan, declaring a blockade of the island and informing the world not to interfere with what is considered an internal matter. At the UN, despite the American president's effort to court Russia over the last few years, Russia supports China and blocks a UN Security Council resolution condemning the illegal blockade. The U.S. now finds itself increasingly alone in the Pacific, having burned its bridges with long-standing European allies in an attempt to spin Russia out of China's sphere of influence. People's Liberation Army personnel have begun arriving at port towns all over China's eastern coast, their combat vehicles and other supplies already pre-staged weeks ahead of them. With a strict information lockdown in effect, it's difficult to verify news stories coming out of China. But there is word of daily incidents of sabotage of China's rail and road networks. War, Day 1. You wake up to breaking news. The war in the Pacific has officially started. The catalyst was a U.S.-flagged supply vessel en route to Taiwan and defying China's illegal blockade on the island nation. It's hard to tell who fired the first shot, but within an hour both nations had delivered crippling missile attacks against each other's forces. But for you back home, the impact of the war is different. You try to take your mind off of things and log into the PlayStation network, but it's offline. A major cyber attack has disrupted global internet communications as both nations unleash sophisticated AIs and cyber weapons against one another in cyberspace. You reach for your phone, but while you can still get a cell signal, getting on the internet is so slow it might as well be dial-up speed. TikTok is completely unavailable, though the US government had already blocked the app entirely the moment it was clear China was mobilizing for war. Other apps are sporadically available. You manage to get on Instagram and see people sharing posts from various news sources. Some are real, many are not. The internet is flooded with both fake and real combat footage, some of it having been prepared ahead of time by the Chinese influence agents to lower American morale. Videos of American ships being sunk propagate like wildfire online, making it impossible to
I'm gonna keep it a stack. Sorry for pausing the video again. I'm gonna keep it 100. We don't need to get in war with China. I forgot them niggas. Don't they own TikTok, my nigga? Or is it Taiwan? If it's China, do not go to war with them, bro, because I think it's China. Yeah, do not go to war. We don't need to go to war with China, bro. Let them go ahead and take Taiwan. Taiwan, just surrender. You ain't got to fight. Just surrender, my nigga. Just surrender. You know what I mean? It's a little island. Y'all can just leave Taiwan and let them take the land, and y'all just come to America. You feel me? That dude Ray that be with Carson and them from Taiwan, just live in America, bitch. You know what I mean? It's just a land at the end of the day, bitch. You feel me? We need TikTok.
tell just what kind of casualties the U.S. Navy is experiencing on day one. One thing is clear though, the stock market has crashed. Stock indices are down 25% in the first 8 hours and show no sign of stopping, prompting Wall Street to close trading. You manage to log on to your crypto trading app and see that in a matter of hours, it's 40% of its value. It's an economic apocalypse. Day 2. As Chinese cyber warfare ramps up, America's digital backbone takes a direct hit, leaving communication lines in chaos. Families trying to reach loved ones overseas are met with silence as outages and interference spread across the nation. Luckily, the internet is an incredibly resilient system, so resilient in fact that it was once thought to be capable of surviving a full-scale nuclear exchange. Modern AI tools have become digital WMDs, far more devastating to a nation's infrastructure than even nuclear weapons are to physical systems. To make matters worse, Chinese AI agents take advantage of the chaos to sow further confusion and demoralize Americans at home. They use compromised passwords to break into social media accounts and begin to post propaganda and fake news that seems realistic. Russia has so far refused to take part kinetically in the war, but has not so secretly joined the cyber effort against America. The same disinformation networks that were so successful at swaying American political opinion since 2016 are put to task of sowing confusion and whipping up anti-war support. Budding peace movements seem to spring up almost overnight, the work of Russian and Chinese real-world influence agents and spies. Across American college campuses, college students led astray by disinformation hold rallies condemning U.S. military action in support of Taiwan. Mass media and free speech, the tools of liberation during the Cold War, have been turned against the United States in the greatest psychological warfare operation in human history. On various social media platforms, individuals and channels attempting to relay the truth about the ongoing conflict are flooded by bot reports, which result in video strikes and even temporary shutdown of entire channels. All flights into the Pacific are canceled for the time being. Thousands of Chinese tourists and businessmen are trapped in America, while only a few hundred Americans are trapped in China, thanks to a combination of State Department warnings against travel and the lopsided exchange of tourism between the two countries. Across the wider Pacific, though, tens of thousands of Americans remain stranded.
That would be tragic if war happened and you was in China and now you're stuck there for who knows how long. Could be months, it could be years stuck in China. I would be sick. I'm talking about, I wouldn't, my asshole would be closed so tight, I'll have to fart through my mouth. You know what I mean? Shit would be crazy. Nigga, I'm stuck in China for the next 10 years, bro. Look. Shit, we finna go crazy. I'm finna fuck all the Asian hoes, you feel me? Look, I'm finna have 100 kids in China, then leave their ass when I'm able to go back to America and never see their ass ever. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have kids all around the world, you know? I'm gonna be busting up. You feel me?
As flights back home are canceled, eventually they'll be rerouted through South America, as the entire western seaboard of the United States is declared a no-fly zone for commercial and civilian aircraft. Panic-stricken shoppers empty out grocery stores in a replay of the COVID panic. This time, though, the target isn't just toilet paper, it's medicine, food, and water. Prepper and military surplus stores experience a boom in sales as individuals buy everything from non-perishable meals to survival equipment in anticipation of what could become a nuclear conflict. Sitting at home, you get a call not to come into work today. While the social situation at home remains relatively calm, your company relies on imported Chinese goods that are no longer available. Your job and the job of hundreds of thousands of Americans across the country is suddenly in question. With $500 billion in trade every year between the two countries, both nations immediately enter a deep economic recession. Day 3. Your day starts with no electricity. Living in a major city on the west coast, a Chinese submarine launched a surprise missile attack against major electrical infrastructure in your city. Luckily, the Western power grid is very resilient, and within hours the power was flowing from alternate facilities. Still, the attack comes as a shock to the entire nation. It's the first time the homeland has been militarily attacked since the Civil War, not counting the 2001 terror attacks. This is just a sign of things to come. Increasingly long-range weapon systems mean that even the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean are no longer a shield for the American homeland. To make matters worse, the rise of commercial drone tech has handed Chinese sabotage teams an unexpected advantage. Now operating inside the US, they can launch targeted strikes on military and civilian infrastructure with off-the-shelf drones modified into deadly weapons. Right as the power comes back on, you're shocked to discover that 2 brand new B-21 Raiders, the world's most advanced stealth bomber, have been destroyed. The 2 bombers were sitting on the runway in Louisiana preparing for action against Chinese naval targets when a sabotage team used several small POV drones to launch attacks against them.
That was an IQ play, man. You know what I mean? Look, we gonna get them with inside. You know what I mean? We gonna sneak in the country and then smack their ass from the inside on, bro, like a virus.
Around $700 million each, China has just scored a $1.4 billion victory using a grand total of $10,000 in drones and munitions. And these are not the only attacks you hear of throughout the day. American defense facilities are extremely vulnerable to attack by sabotage teams using drones. As a result, all drone flights are immediately banned, and the penalty is a fine worth several $1,000s and up to 3 years in jail. Day 4. You're starting to get the clearest picture yet of what's exactly going on in the Pacific. It seems that the US Navy responded to China's attack on Taiwan with maximum force. The First Battle of Taiwan is still raging, though there are reports of heavy casualties for the US Navy. In order to ensure operational security and deny the enemy advantageous intelligence, the exact losses are unknown, but rumors persist that the United States has lost its first aircraft carrier since World War II. There's also rumors of numerous surface vessels, such as destroyers and cruisers, sunk or seriously damaged due to a blitzkrieg attack by the People's Liberation Army rocket force. What isn't up for debate is the cost that U.S. shore facilities have suffered across the Pacific. From Japan to the Philippines, Guam, and even Pearl Harbor, American military and civilian ports and airfields have come under withering missile attack. Hundreds of combat aircraft...
Now that I think about it, how are these countries letting us have military bases in their country? That's like Russia or the UK having a military base in Texas. We gonna be like, nigga, get the fuck up out of here. What the fuck is wrong with these niggas, bro? Y'all not from over here, so how are we allowed to do it to them? You know? Isn't that kind of crazy? That's crazy.
Either destroyed or damaged, despite U.S. forces dispersing widely in the weeks leading up to the war to smaller and less built-up airfields. It's not the disaster that Pearl Harbor was in World War II, but it has put U.S. forces on the back foot. While engineers can repair damaged runways in a matter of hours, it's not so easy replacing costly F-35s and F-15s. One news topic that keeps getting repeated is the sheer cost of the war and expended munitions alone. In just 4 days, the United States has expended thousands of air defense, ground attack, and anti-ship missiles. News anchors talk about the rapid depletion of U.S. stockpiles at this rate, noting that many missiles can take as much as 30 months to produce. As you step out of the house to get some fresh air, you hear the rumble of engines above your head. With all civilian traffic grounded on the West Coast, you know it can only be a military aircraft. Sure enough, you spot a Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft heading out to sea, operated by the U.S. Air Force reservists, and on patrol for more Chinese submarines. The Coast Guard has taken up the duty of defending the American coasts, and their cutters join in the hunt for submarines attempting to launch further surprise missile strikes against vital infrastructure. As night falls, you hear on the news that Boeing's headquarters in El Segundo, California, has been struck by several missiles launched by a Chinese submarine. Day 5. China's intelligence services are taking full advantage, slipping through American society with ease to carry out acts of sabotage or surveillance. Police nationwide are vigilant, not just against Chinese agents, but for those seeking to victimize innocent Chinese Americans who have recently immigrated here or have lived in the U.S. their entire lives. Your job calls you with semi-good news. You'll have the next 2 weeks off, unfortunately unpaid. However, your job has found alternate suppliers in South America, and you'll soon be able to...
Jeff Bezos gotta pay me, bitch. You got too much money. You feel me? You gonna pay me, nigga, if I come or not. What's wrong with you? Oh, we kicking your door down. And we gonna get you. We're gonna take your money. You billionaire. You feel me?
Return to work, though at a part-time basis for a while. Many companies across the U.S. are scrambling to find alternate sources of funding or resources to import, but most won't be as lucky as yours, and unemployment is skyrocketing. Washington passes an emergency debt limit increase and federal budget reshuffle. Billions of dollars pour into the arms industry as civilian factories begin the process of adapting to wartime production. This effort, however, will never be as successful as it was during World War II. Not only did the World War II effort not truly ramp up to speed until the war was nearly over, but there is a world of difference when it comes to manufacturing weapon systems today versus those of yesterday. Your grandparents had no problem adapting to producing Mustang fighter planes at the car company that they used to work at. But today's combat aircraft are so specialized, they require extremely skilled engineers and expensive, finely tuned equipment. Many titanium parts of the F-15, for example, require welding in an airtight vacuum. It's simply not feasible to repurpose the few civilian manufacturing plants left in the U.S. to the production of most of the American military's high-performance equipment. What is possible, though, is adapting them to mass-produce cheap and low-performance weaponized drones. As the war rages and both sides' exquisite combat assets are destroyed, increasingly both sides will turn to launching massive attacks using cheap drones against each other. Day 6. Energy prices have soared. You wake up and realize that to fill your gas tank, it's going to cost double. Global energy markets have been disrupted by the fighting. An American blockade of Chinese shipping in the Middle East and Indian Ocean has left merchants unsure of what is safe to ship where. However, restoring global trade is a high priority for the U.S., and the U.S. government is coordinating with global shipping firms on safe transit routes out of the Middle East and past the combat arena of the Pacific Ocean. China can do little to prevent the American blockade, significantly impacting its import and export-dependent economy. It had hoped that the pressure of combat in the Pacific would force the U.S. to abandon blockade efforts, while warning against the Indian Navy taking up the duty. However, the United States has surprised the world by reviving the age of piracy. After a thorough investigation by U.S. Navy lawyers years prior to the war, it was discovered that it was perfectly constitutional for the U.S. government to issue letters of marque and reprisal in the modern age. Private military contractors, or PMC, operating under the legal protection of the U.S. government, initiate a piracy war against Chinese shipping. The pirate war takes place mostly using fast patrol boats and helicopters, with American and even foreign PMCs boarding Chinese-flagged vessels and redirecting them to neutral ports, where their goods are seized. The PMC receives a portion of the seized goods' value as a reward for their efforts, with the rest going to the U.S. government's coffers. The strategy is extremely effective given China's
Run me your loot. Run me your loot. That's what that shit basically is, nigga. Look, we got you. Go to the port. We taking your shit. Running the loot, bitch. You know what I mean?
ability to deploy naval combat power into the Indian Ocean and beyond. Day 14. 2 weeks into the war, it's clear that neither side has a substantial advantage over the other. Superior American military technology simply can't do anything more than hold the line against the vastly superior Chinese numbers. Reports coming out of Taiwan confirm that Chinese troops have seized several cities on the eastern side of the island, but are suffering extreme casualties due to ongoing Taiwanese resistance and U.S. air and missile attacks. Across the Pacific, U.S. combat ships are finally edging closer and closer to the waters around Taiwan due to the People's Liberation Army rocket forces running out of missiles to fire at them. Memorial services are being held in your city for American combat losses, which already number over 10,000. It's been confirmed that one carrier and most of its crew has been lost, along with several surface vessels. America's submarine fleet is dealing a devastating blow to the Chinese Navy, targeting any vessel that strays beyond the relative safety of the shallow Taiwan Strait. But the same aggressive tactics that make them lethal, operating deep inside enemy waters, also comes at a steep cost. U.S. subs are taking heavy losses. In your neighborhood, a vigil is being held for the crew of a Virginia-class attack submarine sunk somewhere in the South China Sea after launching an attack against several Chinese ships. There are rumors of a draft coming, but a draft quite unlike any other in American history. The U.S. Army is looking to draft several tens of thousands of individuals to take up local duty, protecting vital infrastructure inside the U.S. against sabotage. With the war being an air and naval war, the Army has little need for a full-blown draft. Instead of traditional conscription, the U.S. government is drafting individuals with high-value technical skills, engineers, computer scientists, and AI specialists. The mission...
Look, if the U.S. ever hold a draft, and they draft me, nigga, I'm going to fucking jail, or I'm running to Mexico or something. I would rather sell dick. I'd rather sell my meat to my BBC than go to war for the military. You feel me? Nigga, I did not vote for Trump. So if they do a draft, everybody that voted for Trump should be the first to go fight. You voted for the nigga. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna lie. I fuck with Trump now. And nigga pardon YB. But I ain't vote for him. I don't condone the stuff he do. You know what I mean? I mess with you, Trump. You pardon YB. But I ain't vote for you. So, nigga, I am not fighting. Like, this has nothing to do with us. Iran. I'm talking about Iran. We're not at war with China right now. I thought it was going to be about Iran. It's about China. But it doesn't matter. They did a World War III draft. Nigga, I am not fighting. The fuck? Look, y'all going to kill me? Let me not. Y'all going to delete me? Nigga? For not fighting? No, you're going to send me to jail, and I'm going to send my happy black ass in jail.
Is to support cyber warfare, pilot drone operations, and staff the new wave of advanced weapons factories, churning out crucial tech like the stealthy long-range anti-ship missile, or LRASM, which is proving critical to the war effort. For what must be the third time this week, local TV networks play the Top Gun movies. They hope to inspire waves of volunteers to join the Navy and Air Force's pilot programs,
This shit ain't making nobody
will soon
join,
be in dire need of new combat pilots. Month 2.
Man, I still ain't even seen
become
Top
a
Gun.
lot more uncomfortable. The
I used to
National
work at
Guard and
Mook there when
Reserves
it
have
came
been
out.
fully mobilized by now, and the predicted draft of personnel with technical experience is already underway. Around the country, National Guardsmen set up checkpoints on the approaches to critical military and civilian infrastructure. The worst part, though, is that the government has begun an official rationing program for certain food items and medicine. To prevent fuel rationing and get prices under control, the U.S. has agreed to purchase all of the oil that would normally have been shipped to China, but can now not make it past U.S. blockades. This stabilizes global oil markets somewhat, keeping prices at least tolerable. Normally, the EU would have helped pick up the slack, but after years of ostracizing European allies, there's not much political will for supporting the United States in this war. You're lucky to still have a job. Though you never made it out of part-time work due to supply chain disruptions, at least you're not one of the 18% of Americans who have filed for unemployment, putting even more strain on the U.S. budget. The only good news is that the average prices of homes have contracted by over 30%. Unfortunately, there's few people who can take advantage of the opportunity the war has created. Month 6. The United States has fully mobilized for war. It was expected that once China faced the staggering casualties imposed by exquisite American combat systems, the appetite for war would wane. However, success in Taiwan has now become a matter of survival for the Chinese Communist Party, as the Chinese people become increasingly angry at the toll the war is taking on their husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers. American propaganda efforts to pierce the Great Firewall of China are yielding results, spreading news of the true cost to Chinese forces that the invasion is taking. Both nations are now locked in a struggle for absolute supremacy, and America mobilizes its entire industry. You've left your job to take up full-time work at one of the tens of thousands of pop-up drone factories across the US. The work takes some skill, and there's several days of training, but after that you join the effort to crank out components to combat drones that are increasingly making up the bulk of American combat forces in the Pacific. America's F-35s, once the tip of the spear, have become battlefield quarterbacks, coordinating swarms of cheap disposable combat drones. It's a strategy built on overwhelming force as the US looks to drown Chinese defenses with sheer numbers. In the air, across the sea, and deep beneath it, millions of Americans are now working to produce drones and autonomous weapons. Inflation has reached critical levels, with the prices of groceries skyrocketing to 5 times normal cost. Increasingly, people are turning to bartering and even growing their own food in a resurgence of World War II-style victory gardens. But modern America is far more urbanized than it was back then, and today's cities are denser, more crowded, and far more vulnerable. That means less people can reliably plant victory gardens, forcing the US to rely on importing food. The cost of shipping around the world has spiked due to the violence in the Pacific and the disruption of trade, and many nations are profiteering, with both the US and China too committed to their war to respond with any deterrent military or political power. The world itself is increasingly being divided along pro-American or pro-Chinese lines in a mirror of the Cold War. America's hostile foreign policy in the last few years is catching up to it, and it's finding less and less steadfast friends outside of the Pacific. As both nations' formerly vast naval and air fleets are destroyed, the outcome of the war may come down to who has the political will and economy left to continue. But for you in the homeland, your future has been cast into disarray. Even if the war were to end tomorrow, it would take years for the economy to normalize. You've lost a decade, maybe even more, of economic progress, ensuring that you'll be the poorest generation of Americans in modern history. And there's the political turmoil as the war sees an even greater resurgence of extremism and far-right politics, shifting ever closer to the former center. Some censorship in a bid to combat Chinese disinformation has already been enacted across traditional and social media, but many are calling for even more as the United States continues a reinvigorated tilt to authoritarianism. How do you think your daily life would change if...
Look, man, that'll be the end of the video. Sounds like being in World War III over here, not in the battlefield. I mean, it's livable. It'll still be ass, you know what I mean? It still suck. But, you know, we can do it as long as we don't get drafted. Nigga, I'm not, bro, I ain't gonna go get my whole shoulder taken off by a 7.72, 5.56, you know what I mean? Crazy as hell, you feel me? But look, yeah, that's crazy. But look, if y'all enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, you ain't gotta do that. Watch my next video. Have a nice rest of your day or night.